AutoScript is the industry's premier ASR solution designed exclusively for the legal industry. Developed by VoiceScript, a legal technology company, AutoScript delivers unsurpassed text output from audio recordings of legal proceedings. AutoScript Desktop is a transcript production ASR editing tool that is also purpose-built for the legal transcription industry to streamline the process of turning ASR output into a delivery-ready transcript, reducing transcription time by up to 75% in some cases. For best results while watching this tutorial, we highly recommend that you follow along in AutoScript Web and in AutoScript Desktop. Let's start by taking a tour of AutoScript Web. We log in using the email address and password we used during registration. And I'm logging in. Let's start by looking at organization. By default, you are your organization. As you see here, Lisa D's, that is the name of my organization. But you can also be invited to be a part of other members' organizations. For example, if I was going to do some proofreading for somebody else, they would invite me into their organization. I can click on this down arrow and see all the organizations that I am a member of, but we are going to stick with Lisa D's organization because that's the active one I'm going to work out of for right now. The dashboard provides you with an overview of activity on your account. Members will show you the members to your organization. Right now, I only have the 2. From here, I can also click on invitations, and I can invite new members. An example could be, I want to invite a proofreader to my organization so that this person can proofread my jobs when I finish editing them. Member reports simply will give you an overview of activity with other members in your organization. All jobs will show you an overview of all jobs you have active in your organization, regardless of the workspace that they are in. Let's take a look at workspaces. Workspaces is a way to provide organization to your work. For example, I can click on this down arrow and show you my different workspaces, and you can see I have one for active jobs, one for jobs that are in proofing, and one for jobs that have been archived. So once I've completed the job, turned it in, I still want to keep it in my records, but I just move it to my archived workspace. So the job list is where you will access your current jobs in that workspace. Jobs reports will give you an overview of all jobs and their stats. Cases is a way to categorize work under the master case information. An example would be that you create a case under the case name because you're going to be covering multiple depositions under this case name. This is a great way to organize and track your work. Now let's look at managing your organization. Clicking on the gear icon under your organization name will take you to the screen to manage your organization. From here, we could change the name of our organization simply by typing a new one here. I'm happy to keep mine as Lisa D's. This is going to show me my different workspaces. This is also where I could create a new workspace. This shows me a list of ongoing cases that I have in my organization. This is an optional item for you to use. It is not mandatory. This is a list of all the teams I have set up in my organization. You can view and manage your teams. For example, if you wanted to add a proofreader to your account, you would go to the 3 dots and click on Details. From here, I can see the permissions that are granted to a proofreader. Of course, I wouldn't want them to manage anything with my billing or any of my other managerial tasks. I just want them to be able to proofread the job. So that's the only thing that we have selected under permissions for them. You can customize this any way you want. To add a new team member, I click on Add Team Member. I can start typing their email address, or by clicking on it, I'll get a name of members who have been added to my organization. I think we will add this one. It now comes up in the list down here, and I can click Save. And when I go back to Teams, I can now see that I have a proofreader where I had 0 before. And if I click on Details, I can see that Lisa Dees has been added as a proofreader to my proofing team. Now let's talk about creating a new job, which is what everybody is going to want to do. And I can simply go to my job list view and create new job. You will notice that this Create New Job is available to you from many of the tabs on the left, but I like to actually make sure I'm in the work group or the workspace that I want to create the job in. I click on the job list, Create New Job. I could click on Case Name if I wanted to add this to an existing and ongoing case that I have in my organization, or I can leave it blank. I can add the unique name now that I want to give to this job, and we're going to just call this one Unique Name. Now, to add the media files, I can click here to upload, and I can go to Desktop. Let's just go to Demo. We'll click on this one for Moonlight Plaza since it's one we use over and over again. You'll see that the file is uploading. Once the file has uploaded, the Submit button turns blue, which means I can use it now. I click on Submit. It's going to tell me how many free jobs I have remaining or how much time I have remaining on my prepaid account, or it's going to tell me how much time this job is going to be billed if I'm a pay-as-you-go customer. And then I just click on Transcribe. That job is now added to my job list, and I see that it is processing. So let's look at one more thing real quick before we leave AutoScript Web, and that's going to be your billing account. We're going to go up to our organization, click on the gear icon, and we will scroll down to Default Billing Account, which is created until you give it a unique name of your own. So if we click on the 3 dots and go to Details, this is where I can add a new payment method. So by clicking on Add New Method, I can put in my credit card number, the expiration date, and of course the security code. And then I would click Submit. This will tell me what my current plan is, and it's telling me I don't have a current plan. But if I wanted to upgrade to one of our convenient prepaid accounts, I would do that from here. And of course, our per audio hour for pay-as-you-go is $15 per audio hour, and I can reduce it all the way down to $10 per audio hour just by purchasing one of our business packages. And we have the Pro Pack and the Freelance package as well that you can choose from that are a little bit less cost up front. And this is an important feature here. This is auto renew. If you have chosen one of our convenient prepaid packages, and when that package gets low and you need to run a job, you don't want it to hold you up, you can click on auto renew, and this will automatically renew the package that you had previously selected. If you want to keep control over when you add another prepaid package, then please do not select this. I'm going to deselect mine right now. And that way it will notify you that you don't have enough time left in your account, and then you could go in and manually renew it yourself. So that's a quick overview of AutoScript Web. You can contact any of our product specialists at any time if you wanted a more in-depth view, or you were looking to do something specific and you can't figure out how to do it. One of our product specialists can help you. If you have not already downloaded your free copy of AutoScript Desktop, you can do so now by going to your AutoScript web account and clicking on the Download AutoScript Desktop option. AutoScript Desktop is the tool you will use to edit your rough draft transcript produced by the AutoScript speech-to-text engine, and it is also the tool you would use the CAT System Export feature to create a set of files that you can open in your favorite CAT software for editing with synced audio. Let's take a quick tour of AutoScript Desktop's tools that you should become familiar with. Let's start by looking at the Job tab. From here, you can open and manage jobs, import and export jobs that others may have shared with you or that you want to share with others. We will have the Layouts library that we will cover in depth later in this tutorial. And we have our CAT System Export option here. Now let's go to the File tab. From here you can open files, and this should not be confused with opening an AutoScript job. You can save your current job. You can save your job in one of our many other file format options. You can print your document. But let's look at two very important features that you find on the File tab. One is job backups. So AutoScript does automatic saves and automatic backups of your jobs. You can restore to a previous point or a previous auto backup at any time by going to the Job Backups and selecting the job you want to restore to. Open Logs is very useful if you ever have a need to reach out to our help desk and speak with one of our product specialists, and they ask you to send a copy of your log file. This is where you will go to grab the log file and email it to them. Let's now go to the Home tab. This is primarily the tab that you will be working out of. The Home tab looks very similar to your favorite word processing program, and that is because at the core of AutoScript Desktop is a word processing foundation. This was intentionally built this way to provide our users with the look and feel of a familiar friend while overlaying convenient and time-saving editing tools. Your font settings will work just like font settings in any word processing program, as will the paragraph settings. Let's talk a bit about the Styles tab. If one of our VoiceScript product specialists assisted you in creating a Word template for use with your layout features for editing, then you will have very specific styles that correspond to your layout features. For example, if I expand on this style list so that we can see all of them, you will see that I have styles created for basic colloquy, parentheticals, Q&A. Each style represents the paragraph requirement that is required. An example is that the colloquy for this template requires speaker name to begin 2 tabs or 1 inch in from the left margin. Again, we will go into more depth on this topic later when we cover layouts. Find and replace can be found here and can also be accessed by using the keyboard shortcut Control F for find and Control H for find and replace. Your current job layout is your current working layout. When you apply a layout to a job that you open and begin in AutoScript Desktop, a job layout is created. This job layout contains all of the settings from the master layout in your layout library, but allows you to add job-specific entries that will not affect your master layout. A perfect example of this is the attorneys' names, as you see here. This job layout and the information contained within it will stay with this job and not carry over to any other jobs. ASCII Export is a convenient tool to take your transcript and export it into a true ASCII file that is compatible with any transcript production tool. Very similar to the ASCII files that CAT users use to submit transcripts to agencies. Upload to AutoScript Web is a very powerful tool for collaborating with others for transcript production. If I am the transcriber, I download and edit from the originally produced file from AutoScript Web. When I'm done with my edits, I will click on the Upload to AutoScript Web button, and a copy of my completed version is uploaded back to the job in AutoScript Web. From there, a proofreader can download my edited version and proofread the transcript. Once the proofreading is completed, the proofreader will also click on Upload to AutoScript Web and send the transcript back to the job in AutoScript Web, where it can be passed on to a final production person. Hotkeys are where you will find all hotkeys that have been assigned to the tools in AutoScript Desktop for the player options, in case you choose not to use a foot pedal, the editing tools, and in addition, you will find a complete list of all system hotkeys consistent with hotkeys that are available in word processing programs and Windows applications. Take some time to look through them, and you may find some very helpful hotkeys that you can incorporate into your daily tasks. Options is where you can custom set how you want to interact with your transcript while you are playing the synced audio. Synchronizing audio with cursor position when audio is not playing simply means that you can place your cursor anywhere within the transcript and begin playing the audio from that point. Pause audio on text change means that if you start editing any text in the transcript, the audio play will pause. If you feel that you can make simple edits without interrupting the playing of the audio, uncheck this option. On pause, move cursor to audio position simply means that every time you pause the playing of the audio, the cursor will jump to that location. This is helpful for those users who will pause the audio every time they need to make an edit. Enable page scrolling keeps the page scrolling from bottom to top while the audio is playing. If you are someone who likes to manually control this by using the up and down arrows, uncheck this box. Enable highlighting is what we like to call follow play. This feature will show a blue highlight over the words that currently correspond to the audio being played. Check or uncheck this to enable this feature or disable it. Since the other tabs here are more relevant to the word processing features in AutoScript Desktop and not to working on the transcript, we will jump to the Review tab. This tab is where you will find your spell check and where you can perform functions like tracking changes and adding new comments. Let's take a look at hotkeys in a little more detail. First, let's go to the Home tab and click on the Hotkeys icon. This is going to open up the Hotkeys editor window. The first set of hotkeys that we see are player operations. These are the hotkeys that have been pre-assigned to the player functions, including volume and speed control. Like all of our hotkeys, you can customize any of the key assignments by simply double-clicking on any of the controls. Let's change the Play Pause hotkey. I'm going to double-click on the Play Pause keyboard shortcut. I am going to change the Alt-P by deselecting Alt, and I'm going to change it to Control-P. Let's see what happens when I close this window for it to accept the change. It's going to tell me that Control-P is already in use, and it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite it. Now, we all know that Control-P is for print. It's a keyboard shortcut for print. I don't want to overwrite it, so I'm going to say no. Now I have to go back in, click on Add. I'm going to select Alt. I'll scroll down to the P again, and I think I'll just leave this as Alt-P. I click on the X to close it, and the change has been accepted. Now we're going to click on the tab for Other Operations. This is the list of hotkeys that have been assigned to the editing tools. When you use AutoScript Desktop for the first time, you will be required to go in and set the hotkey assignment for Insert Question and Insert Answer. We have not done this for you already. So let's start with Insert Question. I will double click on it and click on Add. I'm going to keep the Control key theme going, and I'm going to set this as Q for question. It makes sense to me. I click the X, and it has been accepted. Now I'm going to go to Insert Answer, double click, click on Add, Control, and let's select A for Answer. And I click on the X, and it tells me that Control A is already in use by another operation. Do I want to overwrite it? I am going to say yes. Control A is the keyboard shortcut for Select All. We have provided an alternative keyboard shortcut for Select All because Control A does make more sense in an editing platform for inserting the answer symbol. And I want to take a quick look at system hotkeys and explain these to you. These are standard Windows hotkeys listed out by categories. Many of these may be hotkeys that you are already accustomed to using, but a quick review of them may introduce a few more helpful hotkeys that you didn't know existed. One last note on hotkeys is that you are provided an option to print. We can print them for easy reading. We can print them to a PDF file, or I can print them to my local printer. Just click on the print button. We'll pull this over here and select which group of hotkeys you would like to include in your printed version. I'll select both. I click on the print button again, and it will open up a PDF, and we can see that I now have a nice and easy to read list of all of the keyboard shortcuts. Finally, let's take a look at the integrated player. The audio that loads with your transcript is synced to every word in the transcript, making following and navigating the transcript a breeze. First on our list is the current playtime control. This control will advance with you as you play through your transcript. You can also click and drag this control to get it to a more precise point in the transcript and dropping it by time. And if I start playing.
Thank you. Miss Jacob, I've just displayed a document that.
Next, we have the skip amount that you can adjust to determine how many seconds your audio will advance or rewind per click of the mouse or tap of your foot pedal. You can see I have mine set to 10 seconds. We have the standard player controls. We have rewind, play pause, advance or forward. And here we have our speed control. So if I click on this, I have a speed control allowing me to increase or decrease the speed with which the audio is playing. You can control the speed with the hotkeys Control, Alt, and the up arrow, or Control, Alt, and the down arrow as well. We have the volume control here, in addition to your system volume control. And lastly, we have the display showing the current play time relative to the overall time. Note that this is in run time, this is not in clock time. Layouts is the foundation for your rough draft transcript for editing in AutoScript Desktop. Your layout can begin with a Word template that you have created or one that one of our product specialists have assisted you in creating. Just a reminder that you can reach out to VoiceScript at any time and request assistance with creating templates or other tasks by going to the voicescript.ai website and clicking on the support page and clicking on Request Help. If your intention is to use the CAT System Export feature in AutoScript Desktop, then the default layout is all you need. We have several useful videos for our CAT users on the voicescript.ai support page. For all others, you will start with your template. That template could include your cover page, appearance pages, and such, but could be as simple as a plain document. The main importance of the template is that your styles are set for each of the editing tools to correctly match the transcript format requirements. A special note here is that the file must be in the docx format. DOC is not accepted. And don't worry, if you have a basic template that you are going to start with and don't have styles already set up for your format requirements, AutoScript has included a list of styles that you can easily modify to meet your needs. Let's take a look at a Word template so you can see what we are talking about. As you can see, this template is already set up with the proper margins, left, right, top and bottom, page numbering, and line numbering. This template already includes an easy-to-edit cover page, appearance page, index and exhibit page, the proceedings page with a text prompt of where to insert the ASR or speech to text, and a certificate page. Now, if we pop out the styles by clicking here, we can look at the settings for each. We want to start by looking at the normal style, as all other styles are based on normal. We can see that our normal is set to be left aligned and that the line spacing is set to exactly 25.4 points, which is required in this particular template to meet the top and bottom margin requirements and still have 25 lines per page. It will look just like it's double spaced, but with a little more precise accuracy. So let's go back to AutoScript Desktop and look at how we set up our layout using the template we just reviewed. Let's click on the Layouts Library icon. This opens up our Layouts Library editor. We will click on the plus icon here to add our new layout. Let's give this new layout a name. We'll call this one Florida Depot. We next need to add our template. So we'll click on the file browser icon here to locate our Florida Depot template. And I have it right here. I click on it and click Open. We can now see that the Florida Depot template has been added to this new layout that we have called Florida Depot. Now to configure the settings for each of the editing features. We're going to click on the Edit button here, and this will open up the layout window. Let's scroll to the bottom. I like to start with colloquy and work my way up. As you can see, by default, AutoScript has assigned the AS colloquy style. If you remember, I told you that if you don't have your own styles already configured in your template, not to worry, that AutoScript Desktop does provide some basic ones for you to use, which are easy to modify. So if we wanted to use the AS colloquy style here and modify it, we would click on the wrench icon. And I can go into the paragraph setting. Note that it is based on normal, so it's going to be based on normal for this template. If I want to add that 2 tabs or 1-inch indent, I would use the first line indent, which is what this means here, and I would change this to a 1. A tab equals 1/2 inch. So if I need 2 tabs, I need to go in by 1 inch. And if my requirement has colloquy paragraphs 1 tab or 1/2 inch in from the left margin, I would just set the before text option to 0.5. And then of course click OK and OK again. And now my AS colloquy style is set to my requirement. But since our template has specific styles already in place for my requirements, I will just go through and select those, selecting the style that matches the editing tool. Let's start with colloquy. I'm going to go in here and I'll pick my basic colloquy style. This takes the guesswork out of it for me. Byline. Byline is always left margin aligned. So if I simply go in here and select normal, that's going to be left aligned. I do want to change the BY to be capitalized and the space, because when we use the byline, we will select a speaker name and it will automatically format it and include that speaker who is going to be doing the questioning. Q&A. Again, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select my basic Q&A. I'll do it for both the Q and the A symbol. I can see that these are going to be 1 tab in. And this is something for you to check. If it's 1 tab over from the Q&A, you'll want to make this 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because the 5th space, which would be the full tab, is where your text is going to start. Here's a helpful tip for you. By turning on the paragraph symbol, clicking on this button here, we will see exactly how many spaces we have input after the Q symbol and the A symbol. This trick works for all of the editing tools. Here under Byline, if I click the paragraph symbol, we'll see that I have 1 space. So let's move up to the next section. The next quick editing tool is called Quick Heading. This is going to be your section headings as you transition from direct examination to cross-examination to voir dire examination and so on. Now this is a perfect example of how I can use my custom styles from my template and still incorporate the AutoScript supplied styles. So we've added these for you. You can add more custom ones. You can change them. For myself, I do need them centered in all caps. So I can continue with the AS heading style that was provided by AutoScript. I'm just going to make 1 change. I need my section heading to be in bold. So I can click on this edit button here. This opens up the text edit window. I'm going to select direct examination. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to close it. And you'll see now when I use this quick edit tool to insert my quick heading of direct examination, it will be in bold. And if that was my requirement, I could go through and adjust that for each and every one in my quick heading. Moving up to the next section is quick parentheticals. We all use some type of parenthetical. A good one is witness indicating for a nonverbal response. Off the record, on the record. AS heading does not satisfy my need. For my specific requirement, I need my parentheticals to be left aligned. So I'm going to go in here and select normal. Notice that it changes the alignment of that. And I'm actually going to add some text in here because I want to insert the time. I also want to show you that simple text edits I can do right in this text edit window without opening up the editor. So off the record at, and I'll just put in a marker that reminds me I need to put in the time. And I would do this for all of them that are in the list. I can remove any that don't apply, and I can add more by simply clicking on the plus arrow. We did one for off the record, so let's do one for on the record. Normal style. I'm going to give it the parenthesis. On the record at. And my little indication that I need to add the time. And adding any additional parentheticals or to any of the quick edit tools is that simple. Click on the plus button and you can add a new one. If you have one in your list that doesn't apply, you can click on the trash can and it will remove it. Let's remove back on the record. I'll just hit the trash can. Are you sure you want to delete this entry? Yes, I'm sure. And it has now been removed from my list. Quick text is for those blurbs that we add, particularly when a witness is called to testify. That's the best example of it. AS heading works for me because it's centered, but I need to add something a little more custom. So I'm going to click on the text edit button. It opens my edit window. I'm going to hit enter here. Up. It's still centered. I want in all caps the witness name. And I'm going to make that bold. And this is just to show you how easily you can customize what's there. We've looked at how we can add new ones and how we can remove some that don't apply. The goal here is to get the master layout set up just how we want it so that I don't have to keep redoing these tasks. The last section we're going to talk about is speakers. So let's look at this first one. It is for the reporter. So this column here shows us how it's going to appear in the speaker list. And this is how it's going to appear in the transcript when I use the tool. So I have the reporter, colon, and 2 spaces. The reason we set it up this way is because this speaker list has multi-purposes. We use it for the byline. If you remember earlier when I told you we were setting up the byline and that the speaker name would be inserted, it gets inserted from this speaker list when we invoke the byline tool. When I invoke the colloquy tool to replace one of the generic speaker identifiers, it will use this from this list as well. And if I need to insert a speaker identifier or a speaker designation from the speaker list, again, it will use the same format. So if I'm using the colloquy tool, it will apply the colloquy format to the speaker name from the list. If I'm using the byline tool, it's going to apply that. And we'll see that in a minute as we go through and edit a transcript. I also want to show you one last thing. if I wanted to reorder anything in this list, because for me, I'll use the reporter and a deposition transcript in the first 1 or 2 pages and then rarely used again. It's more important for me to have the witness at the top of the list. So by clicking over here to bring up the up and down arrow, I can grab it and drag it up to the top of the list. And we can see that the witness now is at the top of our list. Why is that important? Because when the list is brought up, when we invoke the tool, they're going to be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And for me, I want the witness more at the top of the list. It's easier for me to reach on my keyboard. It may be different for you. So now we just click on Close. And our Florida Depot layout with our Florida Depot template and all of our custom edited tools is set to be used. Okay, now we're ready to open our first job from AutoScript Web into AutoScript Desktop. We are going to go to the computer icon in the job list. First, we locate our job. Let's click on that computer icon. It's going to say Open in AutoScript Desktop. It will automatically launch AutoScript Desktop. If you haven't signed in to AutoScript Desktop already, it will require you to put in your username and password. Your username and password between AutoScript Web and AutoScript Desktop will be the same. When it first opens in AutoScript Desktop, it's going to ask you if you want to use the name that was assigned to the job in Web. Usually we advise that you do, unless you have a different version of it already on your computer, which of course then you would need to rename it. So we're just going to use Moonlight Plaza Inc. as suggested. It's going to import the ASR transcript and I click OK. It's going to download the audio file. It's checking the audio. It's downloading the text. And now it's going to ask me to apply a layout. So because I'm going to edit this in AutoScript Desktop and because we worked on this layout together, I'm going to select my Florida Depot layout. Again, we see there is the template that we had attached to that layout. All of the edits we made earlier are going to be there, and I simply say Apply Layout to this job. It now asks me to place the cursor where I want the ASR text or the speech-to-text to be inserted. I click OK, and we can see that I have my cover page, my appearance page, everything is there for me to start this transcript. What I do is I click behind our little reminder to put the ASR here. I do the Shift key and Home because I want to get rid of it. I want to copy over it, and then I simply click on Insert ASR Text. And there is the rough draft transcript as produced by AutoScript, and it is ready for me to edit. Now, you're looking at it going, but that is not how we set up colloquy. You're right. We have not applied any of our styles to our editing tools yet, and we'll get to that in the next chapter when we edit this transcript together. So we're ready to start editing our first job. So this is the job Moonlight Plaza Inc. that I downloaded from AutoScript Web, and it is now in my template, as you can see here in AutoScript Desktop. It has applied my Florida Depot layout to it, and now we're going to take a look by going to the Home tab and going to Current Job Layout. If you remember, in one of our earlier chapters, we talked about the difference between a master layout and your job layout. So I wanted to emphasize and show you here that our current job layout is very specific to this job now. A copy of the master layout was created and attached to this job in AutoScript Desktop. So any changes or edits that I make in this layout, in this job layout, will not affect or change the master layout. So the first thing we're going to want to do to prepare to edit this transcript is to put the participants' names in. This is a deposition, so I only need to put in the names of the attorneys, and there are two ways to do it. Now that we're in the current job layout, I can do it from here by adding a speaker, clicking on the plus button. I know that one of the attorneys is Miss Atriano, so I'm going to put Atriano in as the name that I want to appear in the speaker list. Miss Atriano, colon, and the 2 spaces. I don't want to forget those 2 spaces. And that's now been added to my speaker list. I am going to show you one more way that we can add speakers to the speaker list, because we will run into those transcripts where somebody speaks in the middle of the transcript and we weren't prepared for it. So we could add their name to the speaker list by invoking the speaker tool using colloquy. I'm going to go Shift Home because my colloquy tool is reserved for replacing. I'm going to click Control 4, which is the keyboard shortcut for colloquy. It's going to open up the speaker list. And if you remember in an earlier chapter, we talked about the items in the list will be numbered. So we see 1 for Miss Atriano, 2 for the witness. Now these are going to correspond to keyboard shortcuts. And I'll show you those in a moment, but these numbers end up being very important. So if I need to add another speaker to my speaker list, I can click on this edit button. It will open up the speaker list. I click on the plus sign. Let's add Miss Seligman. Let's add the text how we want to appear for colloquy in the byline. And colon and 2 spaces, and I simply close that list. And now Miss Seligman appears in my speaker list. Now let's put these tools into action. So as I go through this tutorial, you are going to see me using keyboard shortcuts. Before we get into it, I want to show you that all of the editing tools are available from a right click. So if I right click in the document, it's going to pull up a menu and it's going to give me all of the editing tools. But for me, that's wasted time. I don't like to use my mouse any more than I have to. I have my foot pedal plugged in, so I don't have to use the keyboard shortcuts for playing and pausing the audio. And just as a reminder of the hotkeys, let's go to other operations here. And these are the hotkeys that I will be using for my editing tools. So let's get started. I'm going to place my cursor here and start playing. And you see the blue highlight following the words. Remember, we called that follow play. And that is an option that if you find it distracting to you, you can go into your options up here, just as a reminder, and we could turn that off. I, of course, have my options set custom to me. So I can see that this is Miss Seligman. So we're going to do our first edit together. And this is going to be using the colloquy tool more or less as a find and replace. So if I place my cursor here and I use the keyboard shortcut Shift Home, it's going to highlight speaker A, the colon, and the 2 spaces. I want to replace that generic speaker designation with Miss Seligman's name. I want it applied to the colloquy style, not just for the name that's being inserted, but for the paragraph. So let's watch how this happens. I'm going to do Control 4. Now, those numbers in the numbered list, I'm just going to hit number 1 for Miss Seligman. It's going to take all of the speaker A's in this list and change them to Miss Seligman. It has applied my colloquy format to the paragraph and will continue to do so until it changes. Now, an important thing to point out, which is not apparent because we're at the beginning of the transcript here, but at any point that I use the colloquy tool or the Q&A tool throughout the transcript, it will make that change from this point forward. And I want to talk to you about the difference between replacing from this point forward and inserting where one doesn't exist. So as we go through this and I'm listening, and it says, "Good morning, Miss Jacob." Good morning was actually said by the witness. So I'm going to hit my Enter key. I'm going to hit not Control 4 to replace with the colloquy, but I'm going to use Control 9 because now we're going to insert a name in colloquy format where one didn't exist before. So this one's the witness, and I hit number 3, and the witness said, "Good morning." I go back over to "My name is Terry Seligman." I hit Enter. I'll hit that Control 9 again to insert the colloquy name, and this is Miss Seligman, so I hit number 1. And I think you can see the pattern of how we go through this. We listen, and we get our formatting, not only our speaker designation, but the format to the paragraph. Miss Seligman here says, "Can you hear me?" The witness says yes. So now we're going to go back to that replace. So Control 4, I'm going to Shift Home. I'm going to hit Control 4, and we're going to replace the generic speaker B designation with the witness because this is the witness answering. And I just hit number 3, and now all of the speaker B's from this point forward now will be labeled the witness. And this is good while we're in colloquy. But now right here we go into direct examination. So now we're going to use some of our other editing tools. So if I hit Enter and get a blank line, I'm now going to use my section heading tool. So I use Control 3. Again, if I were to right click, I would get the quick heading tool that I could click on, but I do like my keyboard shortcuts. And you can see the list of section headings or quick headings in this list are also numbered. I'm going to use number 1, just so all I do is hit the 1 on my keyboard and it put in the direct examination. And if you remember, I made that in bold earlier. So it followed exactly how I had set it up in the master layout that transferred to the current job layout. So now I'm going to go down to Miss Seligman, and I'm going to hit my byline tool. My byline tool is Control 8, and it pulls up that speaker list. Remember, we had said that the speaker list is a multi-tool list. It is used by byline, and it's used by colloquy for replacing and inserting. It is Miss Seligman that's going to be doing the questioning, so I'll hit number 1. And you're going to see that it put in by Miss Seligman. And I do see that I have a mistake in my layout. I have too many spaces between by and Miss Seligman. I'm going to fix that here. But I'm also going to go to my current job layout. I'm going to scroll down to the by. I can see that I had 2 spaces in there, and I'm just going to delete one and hit close. So the next time I have to use my byline tool in this transcript, it's going to do it correctly. I also want to go back to my job tab, my layouts library. I want to go back into my Florida Depot, my master layout for Florida Depot. Click on Edit. and I'm going to scroll down to byline. And again, I have the extra space there. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to hit close. And now anytime in the future I go to use that layout for Florida Depot, that will be corrected. Now Ms. Seligman is no longer in colloquy. We need to change her to Q&A. So I'm going to place my cursor in front of the first letter of the sentence of what she said. Shift home for select. That's a great keyboard shortcut. Now I'm going to pull up my Q&A tool. My Q&A tool is Control 5, or that's what I have it set up to be. I see the Q again in a numbered list. Q is 1, A is 2, and I'm just going to hit number 1. And now all of the Miss Seligmans from this point forward will change from Miss Seligman in colloquy to a Q symbol in my Q&A format, and that style will be applied to the paragraph. And if we look above it, we see that none of the previous colloquy had been changed. And I'll go down to here, and we had a misstep in the ASR. It happens sometimes. The witness was identified as speaker B, and she was also identified as speaker C. Not a problem. I'm just going to change it again. So Shift Home, my keyboard shortcut for selecting from this point to the left margin. I'm going to hit Control 5 for my Q&A symbol. I'm going to change the speaker C's to number 2, which is the answer symbol. And from this point forward, speaker C will be changed to answer. Oh, and I've noticed, and I'm kind of glad this happened here, that my Q symbol has an extra tab in it. It has too many spaces, where my A symbol is set up properly. So we can actually go back in. And again, we're going to go to the Home tab. I'll go to the current job layout. And the Q symbol had way too many spaces in there. So I'm going to back them out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll click Close. And again, I'm going to go back to my master layout to change it there so that I don't have to keep doing this every time I go to use this layout and go to job layout. So I'm going to edit. We're going to go to Q. We'll back out all of those spaces. I put in my 4 spaces and click Close, and now that's set up in my master layout the way it should be. But now how do we correct this in the document? Quite easily. I'm going to put my cursor here at the first Q symbol, Shift Home to select from this point to the left margin, which would be just before the Q. I'm going to hit Control 5 again and the question symbol, hit 1, and it's going to replace all of these Qs with the corrected Q, and the spacing should be adjusted properly. And if I look down here, everything lines up nice. So it worked out well that we had made that mistake, or that I had made that mistake in the master layout, to show you how easy it is to go back and make these corrections while you're fine-tuning everything. Now I can see here, and by listening, I can tell that this is the reporter that broke in with colloquy. So Ms. Seligman asked for an exhibit to be marked. The reporter said, absolutely. Now we know this is not part of the Q&A. This has actually gone into colloquy. So I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut, Shift Home here. We are going to apply colloquy to the reporter. This is a great point to talk to you about. Do we do the replace, or should I do it just this one time? It can make a difference on the work that you have to do later in the transcript. And I think for right now, we're going to replace it just this one time, just so I can demonstrate it to you. So if I simply delete that speaker B, now I can use our Insert Colloquy tool, which is Control 9. And this was the reporter, which is number 4. And it's simply going to insert that the reporter said, absolutely. This is Ms. Seligman. Again, the find and replace or just insert. So she switches to colloquy. I could use my tool that changes all of the cues back to colloquy from this point forward in the transcript, but it's much quicker if I just delete that cue out, use my Control 9 for inserting the colloquy tool, and this was Miss Seligman. And now we can see here that Miss Seligman goes back to questioning the witness. So I have to hit enter. We are going to hit our byline tool again, which, to remind you, it was Control 8. I pick up Miss Seligman as number 1. I'm going to insert the Q symbol here because we broke her up in the middle of her paragraph. So it's going to be a different tool than we've used so far. So Control 9 will insert the colloquy. And if you remember, we set up Control Q to insert the question symbol and Control A to insert the answer. So now I'm going to just simply use Control Q. It has inserted the question symbol, applied the proper style to that paragraph. And we can see here where the witness was picked up earlier. Again, easy correction. The ASR doesn't get it perfect every time, but the tools make it easy for you to edit through. So I'm going to replace the witnesses here with the answer symbol, Control 5 to bring up the tool, number 2 for the answer symbol, and all of those witnesses are now changed to answer. So I can't stress enough the difference between selecting something and replacing it, like we just did with the witness and replacing those with answer, and inserting a symbol. You'll learn as you go through the transcripts when it's easier, when it's more time saving for you just to delete something out and insert the colloquy or the question and answer symbol as you need it. The rest of the tools follow along in suit. If I wanted to put a parenthetical here that a exhibit was marked and entered, my parenthetical tool is Control 7. And I don't have a parenthetical in here for exhibit marked and entered. So let's add one together. I'll click on the Edit button. I'm going to click on Add New. We're going to call this one Exhibit. Let's make this a parenthetical, that exhibit, and I want to put in the number symbol, was marked and entered. And then I click X out of this to save it. And now and just to show you something different, instead of selecting the number 1, I'm just going to double click this one so that you can see that it put it in just like we had set it up to be left alignment. And I have my little number symbol here. And I'm going to just put the number 1 in here. That was just a reminder to me that I need to input what the exhibit number was. So now we've gone through and we've edited this transcript. It really is as easy as this. I don't want to try and make it sound or look any more complicated than it is. It is this easy to edit your transcript. And now we're done. We have 2 options. If you are collaborating with a team, so somebody else is going to be doing your proofreading, you can go to your Home tab at this point and click Upload to AutoScript Web. And the completed version of this will be uploaded back to the web, to AutoScript Web, for a proofreader to download and do their work. Or I could go to File, I can go to Save As, and maybe I'm just going to save it out. Let's put it in my downloads as a docx file, and I'm going to give it a name, Moonlight Plaza, and click Save. And now I have a Word version of this transcript saved out that I can submit. that should cover what you need to know about editing the transcript. I do want to remind everybody that you can reach out to us at any time. We have plenty of product specialists that are just waiting to help you. You can reach out to us by emailing us at support.voicescript.ai. You can also go to our voicescript.ai webpage. You can contact support through the support tab there. You can also reach us at contact@voicescript.ai, and there's a form for that on the website as well. We're happy to offer you one-on-one training if you need additional training beyond this video.